Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to my channel, guys. Hope you're all doing well and doing great. Today, we are going to talk about human nervous system. We are going to talk about us. We are going to talk about how this system gonna makes us nervous. This is the major question that we're gonna think about. So, the human nervous system is the system which makes us nervous, which is going to coordinate with all of our body parts and makes us nervous. See, there are different systems we have learned from the previous classes. One is the circulatory system, one is the nervous system, one is the excretory system, other one is the muscular system, and there are so many we have to discuss and we have to read and we have just studied. So today we are going to talk about the human nervous system. As you can see in the figure that this system consists of different organs. Like if you might have one, then you may have an idea about this one and this one. That means this is your body and this is your skull, that is also called as cranium. And there are different sort of lines which is called as nerves, and this is basically the nerve, and this is the brain section, the left and the right hemisphere, and this is also the brain parts, forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain parts, and there are different lobes of the brain. Let's have a look that what is the function of the human nervous system first. Human nervous system is basically carries information from one part of the body to another part of the body and coordinates its function. It's gonna work together. Your body is going to be work together by sending information by sending signals, electrical signals from one part to another part. So let's see the classification of the human nervous system. It is classified into two parts. One is called as the central nervous system and the other one is called as the peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system is basically a part of the human nervous system. It's not like something else. So the central nervous system is the system which lies in the center of your body. It means it consists of brain. Brain lies in the center. You may go towards the mirror. You may just have stand towards the mirror and in front of the mirror and have a look and see if your brain lies in the center or it's in the kidney side. It's in the knees. So the central nervous system consists of the brain as well as the spinal cord. The nerves that arise from the brain is called as the cranial nerves, and the nerves that arise from the spinal cord is called as this is your spinal cord, and the nerves that arise from the spinal cord is named as the spinal nerves. As the nerve is the structural and functional unit of the nervous system, we must have to have some idea that how the nerve look like or how a neuron cell gonna look like. We have billions and trillions of neuron cells in our body that is working, that is sending and receiving information, that is creating some sort of mess, that is creating some sort of excitedness in our body. So it gonna in a basic structure, if you're gonna look, it gonna look like it has axons which send messages away from the cell body, dendrites which receive information, and the cell body. Let's have a look. In the center, the transparent solution which is not mentioned is basically the cytoplasm, and in the center nucleus is also present which controls all the activities of the cell. So the nucleus and the cytoplasm collectively composed of are made of the cell body. There are some finger-like projections, and that finger-like projections are named as dendrites, which carry information towards the cell body, and a long extension which is named as axon, which carry information away from the cell body, and these are the axon terminals and where the neurotransmitters are going to receive. But this is a long discussion, so I'm not going to discuss right now the synapse, a gap. But you must have an idea about the synapse. There is a gap between two neurons. There going to be some millions of neurons. So before we are going to connect with another neuron, there is some sort of gap, and that gap at that junction is called as synapse. So these neurons gonna work in your body. They're gonna receive information from one part to another part. And how they're gonna work? They're gonna work in three forms. They exist in three forms. One is called as the sensory neuron, which are able to sense and send message to the brain or to the central nervous system. It means to the sometime it's going to send message to the brain, or sometime it just send message to the spinal cord, and spinal cord is going to give response. So we're going to say that the sensory neurons are able to sense and send message to the central nervous system, and the motor neurons are the neurons which carry information from the central nervous system and respond it to the effectors at the muscle glands. Effectors are those muscles at the glands which are going to respond with the help of motor neurons. So these neurons carry that response back in the form of information, and just gonna you're going to respond. Like if you are having a cup of tea and that cup of tea is very hot, and how you gonna, if you have just hold it in your hand and you just guess that it's hot, you're gonna put it on the table. You just sense it with the help of sensory neuron that this is hot, and you, when you respond it, when you're gonna act that you are going to put it on the table because it was hot, so that means a motor neurons have start working in your body, and it's gonna tell you, it's gonna respond to you back by getting information from the brain that put it on the table, it's hot. When it is going to be cold, you're gonna put it back in your hand, or you're gonna hold it in your hand. And the relay neurons are the neurons which are going to create link in between these two neurons, which are going to create link, which are going to connect these neurons, sensory and motor. So this is also called as the intermediate neuron. The structure is quite different. The sense organs are basically the receptor organs which are able to sense the stimulus. The word stimulus is basically any change in the external or internal environment. आप कोई भी चीज़ फील करते हैं, आपको एकदम से कोई डोर ओपन होता है, आप फील करते हैं, लाइट चली जाती है या लाइट आ जाती है या बाहर हवा चलती है, आप सेंस कर रहे हैं अपने डिफरेंट सेंसेस को यूज़ करके, दिस इज द स्टिमुलस. सो एकदम से आपको पीछे से किसी ने आवाज़ दी और आप पीछे सुनते हैं, देखते हैं जाके क्या हो रहा है, और लाइट चली गई है, यहाँ टेम्परेचर ज़्यादा हो गया है, गर्मी ज़्यादा, टेम्परेचर हाई और फॉल होने की वजह से, दिस इज ऑल स्टिमुलस. एनी चेंज इन द एक्सटर्नल एंड इंटरनल environment. So hopefully this is clear that the sensory neurons are able to sense and carry information, send information to the brain, to the central nervous system, and motor neurons carry information from central nervous system to the effectors, to the muscles, to the glands, and relay neurons are the intermediate which are going to connect these two neurons. Let's talk about the brain. Our brain is further divided into three parts. One is called as the forebrain, midbrain, and the hindbrain. And the forebrain is the largest part of your brain, which is the control center. The brain is basically your control center, and the largest part of the brain is basically the forebrain, and it is divided into further three parts, which is divided into subparts, which is called as the cerebrum, thalamus, and hypothalamus. All these parts are going to perform some sort of function. The cerebrum, it also further subclassifies into two parts. One is called as the left side of the hemisphere, and the brain is, you may say so that the brain is divided into two parts. One is called as the left cerebral hemisphere and the right cerebral hemisphere. An interesting thing is, very fascinating thing is that it is very fascinating that you have no idea that your right side of the cerebral hemisphere controls the left part of the body, and the left side of the cerebral hemisphere controls the right part of the body. If you have an idea about that, please write in the comment section. If you don't have, please have a look that how it's gonna control the left side of the body hemisphere is gonna control your right part, and the right side of the cerebral hemisphere control the left part, because there is the crossing over between nerves, and the crossing over between the nerves going to send information from one part to another part. Basically, in simple words, we're gonna say that the nerves in the brain cross over to the opposite side of the body, like which is the crossing over of nerves in the brain stem, like in the medulla oblongata organ, which is the part of the hind brain. Like when signals are sent from the brain to the body or from the body to the brain, they cross over in the medulla oblongata. The nerves cross over in the medulla oblongata. So this is how they gonna control the left side, gonna control the right part, and the right gonna control the left part. So we're talking about the brain, forebrain, cerebral hemisphere, the function of the cerebral hemisphere. Then we're gonna talk about the thalamus and the hypothalamus. The thalamus and the hypothalamus control some sort of sleeping or some sort of other functions. So the cerebral hemisphere or the cerebrum part of the brain controls some sort of speech, some sort of your writing, your special ability or artistic or the musical skills. And the thalamus basically control your sensory functions, and the hypothalamus, which is the largest part of the forebrain also, it controls the body temperature, it controls hunger, it controls your thirst. When you're feeling hungry, when you're feeling some sort of thirst, it is just because the hypothalamus part of your brain controls all these functions in your body. Whereas if we talk about the midbrain is creating connection between the forebrain and the hindbrain. And if we talk about the hindbrain is further divided into three parts: cerebellum, medulla oblongata, and the pons. The cerebellum basically control the balance of the body and the movement of the body, whereas the pons control your sleeping, your swallowing, your equilibrium, your taste. Sometimes you like the taste of the food, sometimes you taste it bitter, it's sweet, it's like different taste is going to be controlled by which part? By pons. Whereas the medulla going to control different other functions such as heartbeat, such as breathing, such as digestion, and there are some sort of different things. This is going to be you studied in the higher section when you're going to be the secondary section, that the forebrain is further, the left side and the right side is further consist of the four lobes: frontal lobe, temporal lobe, occipital lobe, and the parietal lobe. They all performing different functions like thinking, speaking, reasoning, reading. When you're able to read, when you're able to think, when you're gonna do, it's all just your brain, it's depend on your thinking, what you think good, you think bad, you think you're having a growth mindset, you are having a fixed mindset, you like challenges, you don't like challenges, you want to learn something new, you don't want to learn something new, you gonna got some sort of opportunities, you want to try new things, you just want to stick with the old things. This is all because of your brain, how you're going to think, how you're going to make your brain to think, how you're going to make your brain to perform function. There is some last thing in the human nervous system, like reflex action and the reflex arc. This is a same terminology, just the pathway we that we follows is reflex arc is a pathway, and the reflex action is the action that we are going to perform. Before gonna talk about it, there are some actions which are voluntary and there are some actions which are involuntary. As the name indicates, voluntary actions are those which are in your control. That, for example, thinking. Thinking is in your control. You know when to think, what to think, how to think, and where to think. It sounds funny, but it's a fact that thinking is in your control. Speaking is in your control. We just quote up. We say something. Think before you speak. बोलने से पहले प्लीज जरा सोचा करें कि आप किसी को क्या बोल रहे हैं. और there are some actions which are not in your control, which are named as involuntary actions. And the involuntary actions are basically the reflex arc. This is a stimulus. Your receptor organs, like your eye is watching, is having a look at the stimulus. Now the sensory neuron, and if you have to pick this apple, what you're gonna do, the sensory organ sends something, use the sensory neuron, send information to the central nervous system. It means it might send information to the brain. If you're gonna have a thinking, अच्छा मैं सेब खाऊं या ना खाऊं, रहने दूं, अच्छा खा ले दो फौरन से. Okay, I have to think, I have to eat this. I'm very hungry, I'm gonna eat it. So the message gonna go towards the spinal cord. Spinal cord is going to manipulate what you have to do. Foreign side, the motor neurons here respond. Motor neurons carry these information, which is sent it by spinal cord or the brain, and the motor neuron is going to help you to respond. Okay, you're gonna pick the response you just showed as with the help of muscle movement effectors. Basically, that is your response, and this all pathway that the stimulus, sensory neuron, then to the brain or the spinal cord, and then to the motor neurons, and then to the effector. This is a reflex pathway. This is the reflex action. How you are going to act, or how you're going to perform your response on the message sending message to the brain, or you're going to do this. This was all about it. Thank you so much for watching, for taking your time to have a look on this video. We're gonna catch you later. Hafiz.